Hello and welcome. Dear friends, today we will talk about one of the important plant hormones, ethylene. Let us start from its history of discovery. Plant hormones, also called phytohormones, are physiological intercellular messengers that are needed to control the plant complete cell cycle, including germination, rooting, growth, flowering, fruit ripening, foliage, and death. In addition, plant hormones are secreted in response to environmental factors such as abundance of nutrients, drought conditions, light and temperature, chemical or physical stress. Hence, levels of hormones will change over the lifespan of a plant and are dependent upon season and environment. Plants make these growth regulators to regulate growth, development, and responses to stimuli. Each of these small organic molecules has pleiotropic effects. The balance between them shifts constantly. Changes in phytohormone levels result in gene activation shifts. Among these plant hormones, ethylene is one having prominent effects on the plant growth and development. Ethylene has been used in practice since the ancient Egyptians who would gas pigs in order to stimulate ripening. The ancient Chinese would burn incense in closed rooms to enhance the ripening of pears. It was in 1864 that the leaks of gas from street lights showed stunning and twisting growth of plants, besides abnormal thickening of stems and rapid fall of leaves of shade trees. During the late 19th and early 20th century, Dmitry Nelyazhov, working in a murky gas-lit laboratory in the Botanical Institute of Petrograd, Russia, identified ethylene as the illuminating gas from the street lights and showed that it causes a triple response on pea seedlings. Dmitry Nelyazhov noted that when pea seedlings were grown in dark, it was observed that instead of being erect and long, cylindrical, with a modest apical hook, the seedlings grew horizontally, were short and swollen, and had a much tight apical hook. In a series of experiments in which he analyzed the constituents of the illuminating gas, Nelyazhov in 1901 identified the culprit as the contaminated ethylene. This effect of ethylene on dark-grown seedlings became known as triple response. The first indication that ethylene is a natural product of plant tissues was reported by Cousins in 1910. Cousins reported that emanations from oranges stored in a chamber caused the premature ripening of bananas when these gases were passed through a chamber containing the fruit. In 1934, Gain and others identified ethylene chemically as a natural product of plant metabolism, and because of its effects on the plant, it was classified as a hormone. In 1935, Crooker proposed that ethylene was the plant hormone responsible for fruit ripening as well as inhibition of vegetative tissues. In 1950s, use of syringes to pump out ethylene from plant material and the advent of gas chromatography for identification and quantification made it possible to measure small amounts of ethylene and led to its recognition as a plant hormone and its physiological significance as a plant growth regulator. Now we will move to its biosynthesis. Ethylene can be produced by almost all parts of higher plants, although the rate of production depends on the type of tissue and the stage of development. In general, meristematic regions are the most active in ethylene biosynthesis. Despite its chemical simplicity, the biosynthesis probably represents the agonies and frustration of the plant scientists who were involved with its study. Because of the fact that homogenization of ethylene producing tissues completely abolishes the ethylene producing activity, studies of the biosynthesis pathway had to be done at tissue level or with non-enzymatic model systems. The first breakthrough came in 1960s with the discovery by Lieberman and Babson that the amino acid methionine was rapidly converted to ethylene in a cell-free, non-enzymatic model system. In subsequent studies, Lieberman and co-workers confirmed that plant tissues such as apple fruit converted radioactive carbon, that's C14 methionine, to radioactive ethylene, and that the ethylene was derived from the third and fourth carbon atoms of methionine. While the methyl thio group was metabolized to non-volatile substance. For next 15 years, scientists were unsuccessful in determining the steps in the ethylene biosynthesis pathway from methionine. In 1977, Adams and Yang demonstrated that S-adenosyl methionine, that we call as SAM, was an intermediate in the conversion of methionine to ethylene in apple tissues. In 1979, an important advance in understanding the mechanism of ethylene biosynthesis was made by Adams and Yang at the University of California, Davis, when it was found that unusual amino acid-like compound 1-aminocyclopropane 1-carboxylic acid, that's commonly called as ACC, is involved as a close precursor of ethylene. Later on in the same year, ACC synthase activity was detected in crude extracts of ethylene producing tissues by Borer and Yu and their co-workers. A notable feature of the ethylene biosynthesis pathway is that oxygen is required in the final conversion of ACC to ethylene. Since ethylene production requires oxygen, Berg proposed that ethylene biosynthesis involves a reaction requiring a high energy phosphate bond, probably in the formation of SAM. The observation by Murr and Yang that ethylene biosynthesis is inhibited by uncouplers of oxidative phosphorylation also supported the view that SAM is an intermediate. Interactive experimental evidences for this view was supported by Adams and Yang, who assumed that if SAM served as intermediate between methionine and ethylene, 5-methyl thioadenosine, that is MTA, would be produced concomitantly with ethylene formation. Using methionine containing radioactive sulfur, they found that tissue plugs from climacteric apple fruits produced both radioactive MTP and 5-methyl thioribose, but the tissue plugs from pre-climacteric fruits did not. Further, the formation of MTA and MTR was strongly suppressed by amino-ethoxyvinyl glycine, which inhibits ethylene biosynthesis. Thus, MTA formation from methionine in apple tissue correlates with ethylene synthesis, implicating SAM as an intermediate. Definite proof of this hypothesis was obtained when ACC synthase activity utilizing SAM as a substrate was detected in tomato extracts. Adams and Yang also found that MTA containing radioactive sulfur supplied to apple tissues was efficiently converted to MTR and methionine, and that MTR was incorporated into methionine. This indicates that MTA is hydrolyzed to MTR, the sulfur atom of which is recycled to methionine. The methyl thio group of MTR is recycled into methionine without splitting between sulfur and methyl group. Based on these observations, Adams and Yang proposed a cyclic pathway of ethylene biosynthesis including methionine, SAM, MTR, MTA, and ACC. The physiological implications of the methionine cycle are significant. When a considerable amount of ethylene is produced, a co-product of ethylene from SAM is recycled to produce the ethylene precursor, methionine, and this allows a constant supply of methionine for ethylene biosynthesis even in tissues containing a small pool of methionine. The overall process of ethylene biosynthesis can be summed up as: number 1, methionine, a sulfur-containing amino acid, is converted to S-adenosyl methionine using ATP. The adenosine moiety of ATP is added to methionine with the release of PPI and inorganic phosphate in a reaction catalyzed by SAM synthase. Number 2, SAM is cleaved to give rise to 1-amino-cyclopropane 1-carboxylic acid, that's ACC, which is a non-protein amino acid, and methyl thioadenosine, that's MTA. This reaction is catalyzed by a key enzyme, that's ACC synthase. After this, number third, ACC is oxidatively decarboxylated by another key enzyme, that's ACC oxidase, to give rise to ethylene. Now, the methyl thioadenine is cleaved by a nucleosidase to give rise to adenine and methyl thioribose. Methyl thioribose, by complicated series of steps, regenerates methionine. The pathway just discussed for ethylene biosynthesis is well established in angiosperms that have been investigated, but there may still be other pathways. For instance, water ferns, Morchellia quadrifolia and Racnilidium diphyllum and liverwort Relia helicophylla produce ethylene from some other precursor than ACC. ACC supplied to fern leaflets is not converted to ethylene, nor do the inhibitors of ethylene biosynthesis, for example, amino-ethoxyvinyl glycine or amino-isobutyric acid, inhibit ethylene production. Microbial organisms also produce ethylene by pathways different from the one in higher plants. It's important to mention that ethylene in higher plants can be produced by the oxidation of many types of organic molecules, especially unprotected long-chain fatty acids. Several enzymes like lipooxygenase, peroxidase can non-specifically catalyze the oxidation and generate substantial quantities of ethylene. However, in all cases of citrus-induced ethylene production in higher plants that have been studied, the pathway via SAM is utilized. Now, after discussing the biosynthesis of ethylene, we may go directly to the effects of ethylene in plant growth and development. First, we will discuss about the seed germination. In nature, the germination of most seeds occur in the semi-enclosed environments of the soil. Ethylene, which is emanated by seeds themselves, is a natural component of the soil atmosphere, and as a plant hormone has been concerned with the control of seed germination. The fact that the removal of endogenously evolved ethylene from the ambient atmosphere by an ethylene absorbent significantly delays the germination of cockleber, lettuce and apple seeds demonstrates that ethylene produced prior to germination functions as an endogenous germination stimulator. The ACC, which I already said is a precursor of ethylene, content in seeds increases during water imbibition, and addition of ACC greatly stimulates ethylene production. The patterns of ethylene production by seeds during imbibition differ markedly among seeds. In all cases, the first peak of ethylene production coincides with the splitting of the seed coat due to radical protrusion, suggesting that ethylene is produced in attendance with seed tissue growth. Nevertheless, ethylene production in many seeds is detectable long before any visible sign of germination is evident. No ethylene production is detected in the dry seeds, suggesting that internal concentrations of ethylene in intact seeds are near threshold required to induce germination. After seed germination, we will discuss about the role of ethylene in apical dominance and dormancy. Besides playing a role in seed germination, ethylene helps to overcome seed dormancy and apical dominance. Ethylene or ethaphon, when applied to cereals, breaks dormancy and initiates germination. Bud dormancy may also be broken by ethylene, and ethylene treatment is sometimes used to promote sprouting in potato tubers and other bulbs. Apical dominance in Agropyron repens is overcome by the spray of ethylene. Ethaphon was shown to increase tillering in barley. Release from apical dominance is involved in this phenomenon. Enhancement of sprouting of corms and increased production of corms is reported in gladioles. Now, root growth and development. Spectacular promotion of adventitious rooting by ethylene to whole plant has been demonstrated by Zimmerman and Hitchcock working at Boyce Thompson Institute. It was also reported that synthetic auxins stimulate rooting and also ethylene evolution. These findings suggested that endogenous ethylene is a natural regulator of root primordial formation or outgrowth, and that the gas participates in auxin-promoted root growth. Ethylene is capable of inducing adventitious root formation in leaves, stems, flower stems, and even other roots. This response requires usually high ethylene concentration, that's up to 10 microliters per liter. Ethylene has been shown to act as a positive regulator of root hair formation in several species. Experimental observations suggest that ethylene acts as a positive regulator in the differentiation of root hairs. Now, the role of ethylene in vegetative growth of a plant. A large number of observations on the effects of ethylene on vegetative growth has been reviewed by many scientists. The inhibitory effects of ethylene on vegetative shoot growth were extensively studied by Abels. Ethylene is shown to inhibit shoot elongation in most terrestrial dicotyledonous plants and with few exceptions in monocot plants. Ethylene causes swelling of the elongation region of shoots, roots and leaf petioles by inhibiting longitudinal growth of the plant. Ethylene-induced closure of the hook region of monocots and dicot seedlings is also based on the ability of the ethylene to selectively inhibit cell growth on the inner part of the hook. In some plants, the inhibitory effect of ethylene on shoot growth has been attributed to the reduction in the auxin levels, possibly via ethylene-induced acceleration of auxin metabolism. Ethylene also inhibits indole acetic acid transport in plant systems while ethylene inhibits elongation. Now, leaf ontogeny and abscission. In most plants, ethylene is an effective inhibitor of leaf expansion with some exceptions. Concentration of applied ethylene as low as 0.25 nanoliters will reduce growth in all cell types in the dicotyledons, for example, Quercus pisum sativum and Fascioles vulgaris. That modification of endogenous ethylene production can also regulate leaf growth in vivo is indicated by the transient enhancement of expansion that follows a red light pulse. This enhancement is attributed to an associated phytochrome-mediated red light repression of ethylene production as in isolated pea seedlings. A promotion of leaf expansion has been observed in the presence of cobalt ions, since the later ion represses enzymatic conversion of 1-amino-cyclopropane 1-carboxylic acid to ethylene and thus results in greater leaf expansion. Now, we will have a look on flower development and senescence. Senescence is a genetically programmed developmental process that affects all the tissues of the plant. Several lines of physiological evidence support role of ethylene and cytokinins in the control of leaf and flower senescence. The involvement of ethylene during flower senescence has been studied and its specific role has been elucidated comprehensively in various plant species such as Dianthus, Delphinium, Lathyrus, Consolida and Ranunculus. In these plants, exposure of flowers to ethylene accelerates senescence and ethylene production of flowers increases during senescence. First, exogenous application of ethylene or ACC, that is the precursor of ethylene, accelerates leaf senescence, while treatment with exogenous cytokinins delays leaf senescence. Moreover, enhanced ethylene production is associated with chlorophyll loss and color fading, which are characteristic features of leaf and flower senescence. Inhibitors of ethylene synthesis, that is AVG and cobalt ions, and action of silver ions and carbon dioxide retard leaf senescence. In addition to leaf and flower senescence, ethylene appears to regulate the senescence of carpels. For example, in the flowers of garden pea, that's Pisum sativum, which normally self-pollinates, the carpels sense if pollination is prevented by removal of stamens. If the carpel is treated with inhibitors of ethylene action, such as silver thiosulfate, senescence of the carpel is delayed. Recently, it has been shown that senescence in pea carpel cells involves nuclear condensation and DNA fragmentation between the nucleosomes, which can be visualized as DNA ladders when sides separated by gel electrophoresis. This type of senescence, first characterized in animals, is called apoptosis. Now, effect of ethylene on fruit ontogeny and abscission. The influences of ethylene on the development of commercial fruit are obvious from a whole range of practices within the horticultural industry throughout the world. In fact, ethylene releasing chemicals are used to promote the early development of stone fruits as thinning agents, as an aid to harvesting olive fruits, or to stimulate the degreening of citric fruits. There is a pattern to the trends in ethylene production rates during fruit development. There are of course variations from species to species, which reflects that how fruit develop from different parts of a flower, and these parts themselves differ in rates of ethylene production. Ethylene is produced at a high rate during anthesis, that is when flower opens, and during early development when the auxin content is high. A lower rate is maintained during growth phase. Typically, this is reported as less as 0.1 microliters per kg per hour, and it may be much less than this. As ripening approaches, the basal rate of ethylene production increases in those fruits classified as climacteric. Mango and peach are the examples of these climacteric fruits. In most climacteric fruits, the rise in respiration rate accompanies or briefly trails the increase in ethylene production. In typical non-climacteric fruits such as citrus or grapes, the low rate of ethylene production measured before ripening persists throughout fruit development. Now, we are discussing pathogenesis and disease resistance in relation to ethylene. The enhanced formation of ethylene is an early biochemical event in many plant pathogen interactions. In virus-infected plants, citrus ethylene is produced by the plant because virus lacks the capacity to produce ethylene. In bacterial or fungal diseases, the situation is more complicated because some pathogens have a capacity to produce ethylene themselves. Nevertheless, most of the ethylene synthesized in bacterial or fungal diseases is generally also of plant origin. Generally, ethylene biosynthesis is induced in cases where a plant actively recognizes pathogen attack. Virus-induced ethylene production was first reported in 1951 for several host virus interactions causing local necrotic lesions and have been studied extensively in tobacco plants infected with tobacco mosaic virus, that is TMV. The tobacco plants which are resistant to tobacco mosaic virus infection show a surge of ethylene production about 48 hours after the mechanical infection with a virus suspension. An early report of ethylene production has been shown in the plants infected with bacteria. Erwinia cortivora, a pathogen that does not produce ethylene, and a cell-free culture fluid from this bacterium containing proteolytic enzymes caused marked ethylene production in cauliflower florets. Carrot discs infected with Agrobacterium tumefaciens or Agrobacterium rhizogenes produce high levels of ethylene. Enhanced ethylene production appears to be secondary result of auxin synthesis in the plant tissues. In 1950, Williamson described ethylene as a metabolic product of plant infected with various fungal diseases. Only one of the pathogens he investigated, that is Penicillium digitatum, produced ethylene in pure culture. He concluded that fungal infection generally caused increased ethylene production in the plant. Later studies confirmed the studies of Williamson. Friends, we can conclude from today's lecture that ethylene is almost involved in the whole process of plant development and senescence. Its involvement in plant growth and development starts right from seed germination up to the death of the plant. Thanks.